Hello! Today we're going to make some baby elves. This is the Light Heart Arts Sewing School instructional video. There's two patterns for the baby elves. Actually, just two covers. The patterns are the same. First is the baby elf kit, and that contains the patterns, of course, but the fabric for the burrito baby wrap, a light skin tone, a hat fabric, and some notions to use, pom-pom, bells, things like that. The same pattern is in this. This is simply a pattern, not a kit. It doesn't have the fabric and notions in it. So you can choose any fabric you want. We're going to use the kit today with these materials. But I'm also making two elves that decided to go rogue. They wanted to choose their own fabric and outfits, and you also may. The first thing we're going to do is get the pieces cut out. So whatever fabric you're using, in the kit it's these two, put them right sides together, whatever you pick, an inside and an outside of the burrito. Put them right sides together and take the pattern and pin it on. If you have a particular part of the fabric that you like best and it's not all the same, this area that will show the most will be right around in there. So if it had a particular design that you wanted to see the most, this section here will be the front, right around there on the baby. All right, next is the hat. Take whatever fabric you're using, and you want two layers of it. And if there is a right side and a wrong side, put the right sides together. And pin on the baby elf hat, keeping the pins inside of it. And last but not least, take the fabric you choose for the skin tone. In the kit, it's this one. And put the baby elf pattern on there. Now in the pattern, it says to trace this shape, but I'm going to offer you a different way to do it if you'd like. All right, now they're all pinned on. Do not cut out the baby elf body pattern. That is going to be sewn with the paper on it, or you're going to trace the shape with a erasable or fabric pen and then take off the paper and sew on that line. But I'm preferring to sew just around the edge of the paper while it's still on. You can choose. Meanwhile, we'll cut out the hat and the burrito. And if you're making more than one, like I did with these other two rogue elves, I put all the fabrics in a pile and cut them all out in one fell blow, but you can do it however you'd like. But this is an easy pattern to make an assembly line. I could put 2 or 3 of these under each other and cut them all out at once if I wanted to. As long as the fabrics are all right sides together, that'll work out fine. Now, when you're sewing this, you'll see that there are little dots there, and you don't sew between the dots. So if you'd like to make a little snip where the dots are, that will remind you. That's a part that won't show. That's the place you do not need to sew, because you're going to use that to turn it inside out, and then when you wrap it up, it will be hidden. Cut out, and we're on to the next step. All right, welcome to the sewing machine. Now I've got this baby elf body ready to sew. You'll notice that there's 2 dots here. Leave open between the dots. So I'm going to start sewing at this one, just outside the edge of the paper. Now if you traced it, you'll take the paper off and sew right on your line from that point. When you are reaching a corner, you'll want to put the needle down and stop and turn it, and I'll show you. It makes a nice clean corner. Getting there, so if I'm getting a little nervous about it, I'll turn the knob at the end of the machine and put it down myself. Then I'm going to turn, go up a few more stitches, and then I'll go around the outside of this ear very slowly. And if you are nervous about a curve, put the needle down again, lift up the presser foot and turn it just slightly, and sew even just a few more stitches. And then put it down yourself again if you want to be exact. Now, on any point, you'd think that if you went straight up and straight down, it would be the sharpest, but it's actually going to be a little bit better point, crisper point, if you make one small stitch across the end. So I'd like to do that. And I got my needle back down to turn so that the fabric can't shift. You can always just turn it with your hand instead of the pedal if you feel like you're losing control. Needle down again to go around the top of the head. Now, most of these elves have hats on. If you have a bald elf in mind, be especially careful of the curve of this head. But if your elf is going to wear a hat, it might not be that crucial. I like to spend time on the things that show. Needle down in the crease of the ear, turn it. Take a few stitches to the point of the ear, one stitch across, just a small little stitch, and down the outside of the ear. Okay. Now the rest of the elf won't show unless for some reason you want to have a removable burrito that someone can play with. Then you might want to sew up the open turning holes and put some Velcro on it, and you can fiddle with that. I'm sure you can figure it out if you want to do it. But my elves are just decorations. Okay, if you need to pull out the pin to get around the outside, no problem. And that stitch the opening. Okay, so now we have an elf that's ready to turn and stuff in a minute. Okay, next is the hat, which I am also going to do in white because I did one a minute ago and it didn't show at all. So why not make it easy for yourself? All the stitches in this pattern are 1/4 inch, so you just go back to the edge of the presser foot, or if you have a different way to measure, feel free. I always like to hold my threads so they don't grab and pull out of the needle. Just go around, and like I said before, if you want to stop and adjust your curve, if your fabric's starting to pull or do anything crazy. Onto the top of the hat, like one stitch across, back down the other side. And back stitch. Okay, so here's the swaddle blanket pattern, and you can see that I made a little clip where this dot was, and that's where I'm going to start sewing. Holding my threads again, just to be safe. Okay, at each corner you can put the needle down and make your turn. These are, there's only one corner on this that usually is a little bit crisper than the others. It's this point we're coming to now that's behind the elf's head. So if you want to, you can make one little stitch across the point of that and back down. It's not essential. This is pretty easy sewing, a great project for beginners or for a class. Have fun with it. It's not a precise pattern. It's very forgiving, so. Okay, off we go. Whoops. Now we'll clip these. Just want to clip off very carefully the corners. Make sure you don't cut through your stitching or you'll have to restitch that section. Cutting off the outer corners just to reduce the bulk. Okay, there's the swaddle. That's an easy one. The hat, you'll just carefully clip across the top. And you can trim it down a little bit. It still be okay because you also will need to clip the curve. Just a little bit. Now the hint when you're clipping is never just go like this. You always want to take just the tip of the scissor and snip so you can't accidentally overdo it and cut through your stitching. So just a little snip in a few places will ease that curve and it'll be beautiful. Okay, so now we've got the, come on little guy, baby elf body. We're going to go ahead and cut that out kind of close. I like it about 1/8 of an inch or so. And of course being careful not to snip through your stitches. But if you do, just sew it again. Just sew at that same place you snipped. It's not the end of the world. This is supposed to be fun. Okay. Now, just like before, we're going to carefully snip the very tips off the ears, not going through your stitching. You're going to go into the little corner there just with the tip, not going through your stitching. Again, of course. Okay, you can put a few in the top of the head, although for most of you, if you're doing a hat, it won't show. And maybe a couple in the side, but again, the body of the elf isn't going to show much. So you can snip a little bit into the crook of the neck. The neck and the ears are what will show the most. So they need to be where you especially clip. All right, now we'll stuff. Of course, the prelude to stuffing is turning it inside out. These two rogue elves are turned inside out already, and I pressed them. You can press them again once they're stuffed, gives it a nice little round shape. But turning this inside out, I like to use a chopstick or a pencil. The thing I like about a pencil, the eraser has a little bit of a grab, and you can kind of gently, because if you push it too hard, you'll have to turn it right inside out again and re-sew a stitch if it's a place that will show. If not, maybe you'll be in luck. Okay, here is a gentle little poke of the ear. Just getting that little point out. And the other side. Just gently, not to punch through your stitching. And kind of go around along the round of the head and the ear edge and the body. Just kind of go along the seam and push it out, and it looks pretty good. Sometimes I do use the point of the pencil in the ear if it's not gonna make a big mark. Just have to be a little careful. I'm just getting that point a little bit better out. Okay, it looks pretty good. So here's the stuffing, and it's better to put it in little bits. If you put it in too much, it just makes a big ball that can't get into the little spaces like ears. But if you put a little bit in at a time, you can get it in initially with your fingers. It's easier. And then go up into the head, and you'll probably need to take a little tiny piece and shove it right up into the ears specifically, because that ball that went in the head stayed to itself. Okay. All right. And sometimes you need the little bit of the point just to get it right up in there in the end. Now, I think we'll press it, and that will make the shape a little more defined. I like to press the whole thing when the stuffing's in it. So I'll put this last little bit in the body and do the two other elves, and we'll go press them. turn inside out the hat and, I should say right side out, the hat and the burrito wrap. Okay, I'll see you over in the board in a minute after I do that. All right, we've got 3 pressed elf bodies, and we've got a pressed burrito wrap for the one in the kit. The next thing we do is make the faces. In the pattern, I used to stamp it with some paint, but now I am preferring to make a little dot with a permanent marker. It's a lot easier, a little more predictable. I like a small dot, but you can do however you want, and you can do it with any color you want or with the paint. I generally make 2 little pencil marks at the level of the top of the ears, about 1/2 inch apart. That's what I like. I don't know if you can see those little marks very well. I don't know. That's the way I like them. But, you know, since this is your pattern, your project, any way you do it is right. If you like it, it's right. Okay, I've made my dots. Now I'm going to use either the fine tip gray or a fine tip permanent. They're both permanent fabric markers, or just permanent markers. Now, if you use a marker, you have to just do it quick and come off, because if it bleeds, it will ruin it. The wonderful thing is, if you do one side and you don't like it, you can flip it over and use the back. I like it. I like the little eyes myself, but everyone's different. So I'll go ahead and do all of these guys. I think I'll use the black on all of these. And then we'll do some little blush cheeks. Now my favorite part is the elf beauty shop, because I generally use a little bit of blush. This one has lots of different colors. You can use whatever you want, but on the lighter skin ones, it shows up a little better with this light pink. I like to put a pretty cheeky cheek on there, and you can rub it. Fade it in a little bit, because they're kind of cartoonish anyway. I like to use a little tawnier color on the darker skin, so it will show a little better. I think it looks pretty cute. And then here's this other one. I don't know, whatever color. And you can always touch up the cheeks if they fade out or someone's handling a lot and rubbing them. Anyway, that's fun. So next, we're going to wrap them up in the swaddle. Okay, here's this little guy ready to get in his swaddle. So you could use either side as the inside, but whatever side you want as the inside, put it face up. And because yours might be facing this way or this way, I'll give you general directions. You're going to set the little elf with his head, or his or her head, near the point. Then you're going to take the short side and bring it across like that. Then you're going to take the bottom. You see that? My hand in the way. Take the bottom and wrap it up. Now you're going to take the long side, push that down a little bit into the fold, and just bring it across and around. Now on the back, for now we'll pin it, but you'll want to sew it or put Velcro, whatever you'd like to do. If you want your elf to stick up a little more, you can unwrap it, do it again, or pull him up a little higher, him or her. He or she, as the case may be. All right, the next thing is to iron the hat. The hat looks kind of funny right now. It looks kind of like a diamond shape, but that's because you're going to flip the inside up to the line on the sewing pattern, which comes about where it starts to get smaller. At the widest point is kind of where it flips up to, so that it has a self-facing. See what I mean? All right, I'm just pushing it up there with my fingers, and I'm going to iron it, but now it's short and it's faced, and it will fit on nicely, this little guy. Okay, we'll just stick it on, and here's a cute little baby elf. I might like this one a little bit lower or a little bit higher. And I may put a little wisp of hair just sticking out under the front of the hat. I kind of like some of the ones with a little wispy of hair. It gives them a little bit more character, and it helps them maybe look like someone that you are trying to replicate. Give them an elf, a self-elf or something. Okay, so this one's going up a little bit higher. Again, I'm just wrapping bottom up and bringing this across. Okay, anyway, so in the kit now, you have a pom-pom you glue on the end. You have the ribbon if you want to tie the little bow. You have a little bell if you want that on the ribbon, because that's like the picture. And you have a little string that you can use as a hanger. And to do that, all you're going to do is pull down the back here if you want it to have a hanger, tie it doubled in a knot, and either glue or stitch it right there behind the head so that it's now has a hanger on it, and it can be an ornament that way. So I'm going to repin this elf, and then we'll wrap up the other two, and I'll show you a fun thing you can do that one of them particularly asked me to do on her hat. Now we've got the bow on here, and we could just glue it or stick the pom-pom on with glue and the bell on with glue, whatever you'd like to do. Then this one here has its wrap now, and I decided I'd like to have a little bit of hair coming out. Since it's Scandinavian looking, I'll put a little blonde hair. So I just took some yarn and tied it in a knot in the middle, and then I brought all the pieces together and kind of pulled them apart a little bit, trying to make them more wispy like baby's hair is. And then what I'll do is I'll put it on the head. I'll eventually glue it, or so just a little glue will do. But for now, I'm just going to stick it there and show you. Kind of cute. This one wanted a different hat, so he got it. Now this one here has requested something special. She wanted a little fancier hat. So I'm going to show you how to do some fussy cutting if you haven't already learned that. I have this fabric with the peppermint on it and a regular old green hat. But I had a little more fabric, so on the back I put some stitch witchery or some sort of a web, fusible web. And so I'm going to fussy cut, as they call it, one of the little candy shapes off of here and glue it on the front of the hat, just for fun, just to make her wish come true. So maybe she's a candy elf. So I'm pulling off the backing, if it has a backing. I'm going to stick it right there, and I'm going to iron it. And it will be permanently put on this hat. So I hope you're happy now. I think that's pretty cute. She'll probably need some hair. I may make some curly hair coming out the sides a little bit, but we'll get to that later anyway. in my own time. So that's lots of fun ways you can make Burrito Baby elves. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for coming.